I don't think there's ever been a 4-star that I've been more excited for than Chevreuse. She's coming to Genshin Impact in 4.3, and she is going to open up a whole new range of team building archetypes. Chevreuse's kit has been confused as being a Nilou type of kit, and although it's pretty similar in the way she is restricted to only working fully when there's only Pyro and Electro characters on the team, what she does is something very different. Instead of buffing the overloaded reaction itself, she buffs the characters used in the reaction, and she buffs them in a very specific way. Chevreuse's buffs essentially replace the buffs of an Anemo Viridescent Venerer character. This does come with the downside of not having grouping. She only has a very tiny bit of grouping through her ult, but it's not enough to reliably actually group characters together. And being an overloaded reaction, knocking characters away, she's mostly going to be relegated to single target. But despite that, she's going to open up a whole new array of team comps, which I'm going to talk about today, as well as how good I think she's going to be, how you might want to consider building her, and if she's going to be the right character for you. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. As usual for my pre-releases, we will be showing footage from the Genshin 4.3 livestream trailer, so if you don't want to see that, close your eyes or put on some very, very dark shades. As usual, I will be fully testing her kit and testing all the things that I'm talking about when I actually get access to the character right before she comes out, so my guide will be dropping the minute that her banner drops in the second half of version 4.3. So everything here is obviously subject to change and just based on what Hoyo has revealed so far. So starting off with her kit explanation. Her normal attacks are just normal attacks, nothing really crazy there. You're not going to be using those. For her skill, she fires her musket, and not only will it do some damage to the active character, it will also heal the active character, which is pretty interesting for a unit like this. This will also give her something called an overcharged ball, which will deal damage, and every time a character in the party also creates an overloaded reaction, it will make another overcharged ball. She also has some additional off-field pyro application on top of that. Moving on to her burst, it fires an explosive grenade, dealing some AoE pyro damage, and that turns into some AoE explosive shells, which actually knock enemies inward instead of outward, like Overload tends to do. But of course, this is only when she's actually on field, so you won't have grouping while she's off field, unfortunately. For her passives, this is where things start to get really interesting. If you only have Pyro or Electro members in your team, after an overloaded is created, she reduces the Pyro and Electro res by 40% for 6 seconds. That's a ton of damage. That's a ton of resistance. We run an entire artifact set and sometimes run Anemo characters just to run that artifact set primarily for this effect. Of course, a lot of Anemo characters have grouping or damage buffs, but this is definitely the biggest thing. And so this is huge. And not only does it do it for one element, it does it for 2. And normally you're never going to be able to get an Electro and Pyro swirl at the same time. That's just not a compatible reaction. So this will create teams that were never before seen. You can't just run an Anemo character with Yoimi and Fischl, for example, and expect to get swirls for both characters. That's just not going to happen, especially in single target. Not only that, her second passive gives a further attack boost based on Chevreuse's max HP. You'll either be able to build her for damage or for HP and buff your characters that way, so you get some further buffing. I won't go into detail on each individual constellation, how it all breaks out. That'll be all in my further guide, but her constellations are very good. They do things such as give more energy recharge, more personal damage, more healing, and elemental damage bonus is the big one, probably going to come very late into her constellations. This makes her a very, very powerful buffer. And as it happens, my favorite characters are Pyro and Electro. So I don't know about you, but now that we've talked about how she works, great job. Could you close the door, please? Thank you. Let's get funky with the teams. I think for this video, we'll pretend Amber is Chevreuse. So this is the first team I see working extremely well. It's Raiden National, but instead of using Xingqiu, you're using Chevreuse. Not only does this free up Xingqiu for your other side, but it reduces the resistance to both Pyro and Electro, meaning it's as if you were getting an Anemo swirl for both Xiangling and for Raiden. You also don't have to worry about the usual overloaded knockback because you're going to be using this team when National is normally used in bossing. I have no idea if this is going to improve the ceiling of Raiden's teams, to be clear. I haven't seen anyone do calcs on this. I'll just have to test it out. But giving a 40% reduction to Raiden and a 40% reduction to Xiangling, both getting the Bennett buff, you are losing Xingqiu's personal damage, which is significant, and you are losing some vaporizes. But I think this team is going to be cracked. Time will tell, though. One of the really cool pros about Chevreuse is that she gives you the 40% reduction from off field, meaning she doesn't have to switch back on like an Anemo character. So she's going to work with much better with longer field time characters like Sino. I'm having a hard time thinking of a better overall team than this one because the Bennett buff is still so valuable and Xiangling does a ton of off-field damage. Maybe if Chevreuse has a lot of off-field pyro application, you could do something like this and Snapshot's Beto's buff, get some interruption resistance. The thing is that this is again mostly a single target team doing overloaded, so maybe Fischl is the better choice here. This really all depends on whether or not Chevreuse has enough off-field pyro to trigger overloadeds while Sino is on field for a long time. I don't know if that's going to be the case. At least once every 6 seconds is what it has. But for sure, this template is going to be good for a lot of Electro characters. I think Raiden will be the best, but you could really run anything, any Electro in the first slot, as long as they can provide Electro on demand while on field. But the other core that I'm really, really excited about is the Pyro on-fielder with an Electro off-fielder, because Fischl is an extremely good Electro off-fielder and extremely good for bossing. Yoimiya is extremely good for bossing, and Bennett buffs both of them. So again, it's just such a good combination. Finally, we can create the fireworks Yoimiya team that we've always dreamed of. If Chevreuse's healing is good enough, especially at higher constellations, maybe running Fischl and Beto together could actually be really good in this team, because you've got the resistance to interruption, the damage reduction from Beto, you've got Chevreuse healing some off field. I think this could be awesome, actually. It's not going to be enough resistance to interruption to just always spam Yoimiya's attacks without dodging. You are going to have to weave in some dodges. I know a lot of Yoimiya players don't like that, so replacing it with someone like Thoma might be more your speed. I personally have learned to like it, and because of the higher damage that I can get out of Yoimiya when I'm willing to not put a shielder on the team. But I think this team will perform pretty well also. Just, oh, don't Faithy. When you play with that ruins my video. Now you're unplugging my video. You're unplugging my computer. Yeah, we don't want to crawl under the table. But this is obviously not a Yoimiya exclusive team. Any Pyro character will work, and probably Yoimiya won't even work the best. I'm just the most excited for Yoimiya. But someone like Hu Tao, someone like Linny, D-Luke, heck, maybe even someone like Dia could work well in this team, because you're getting the Bennett buff, you're getting Fischl. You don't need to do normal attacks to proc Fischl. Obviously, it's better if you're doing normal attacks, but you're still going to get those overloadeds. You're still going to get them. It's you know, it's not going to all of a sudden make Dia incredible, but it's totally possible that it's her best team. People are also talking about switching out Xiangling for Kujo Sara here and doing like a Hyper Raiden team replacing Kazuha. And I think this could work, again, as long as there's enough off-field power application for Chevreuse. I think it definitely has potential. I doubt that it'll be better than having Xiangling here, but it's definitely possible. I must have already said Klee, but if I didn't, there you go. Yanfei, gonna be a really great option as well. Now, are there any Pyro characters that don't scale off of attack? No. Are there any Electro characters that don't scale off of attack? I think they all do. It would be really interesting if we have some Electro or Pyro characters that didn't scale off of attack, because then they wouldn't want to use Bennett. Because what I'm finding is that Bennett is on every one of the best teams that I can think of. So not playing Bennett, like Yai, like I didn't mention Yai, but you can use her as well. And also for the Electro on-fielders, I'm having trouble thinking of someone other than Xiangling to be the second Pyro slot, because all we have is Xiangling for off-field Pyro, basically, that actually does good damage. So I think that Chevreuse is a character that might end up aging like fine wine. She might be a character that when we get more Pyro off-fielders, when we get more Pyro on-fielders, Electro on-fielders, that she's going to be like a staple option for a certain type of team. I just think that's so awesome. It's such a fun and cool team. I'm really, really excited for it. We don't know how good it's going to be, right? I'm obviously really excited. Maybe it comes out and I'm super disappointed. That could definitely happen. I've seen the calcs. They look quite promising. Some people aren't as excited as me. I think it's going to be awesome as heck. I'm not concerned if it's not the total ceiling team. I just want it to be really, really good. If it's even comparable to Kazuha teams, that's huge, because she can replace Kazuha in a single target buffing scenario. And I just think that's awesome. And it opens up new teams that you couldn't have run before. If you're thinking of pre-farming for her or like getting some stats together for her, she is a polearm user, so you're going to either build her for damage or for support. I find with characters like this, you're usually going to want to build them for support, so probably you're going to want to run Favonius Lance. You're probably going to want to run Noblesse artifacts. We'll do the full build guide then. I'll test a bunch of different stuff out. We'll test her multipliers. Maybe she's worth building damage on. Maybe you should build Crimson Witch on her because that improves overloaded damage by a lot, and you know, most of her hits are going to be triggering overloaded. So who knows, but I'm excited for Chevreuse. Let me know if you are too. She's running with Raiden and Yoimiya, two characters that synergize really well with her. So if you're trying to get one of these characters, it could be that Chevreuse just opens up a whole new great team option, especially if you're new. You're picking up Raiden or Yoimiya to all of a sudden have the option to open up that team and not have to wait for Kazuha to make a good Raiden team. I mean, obviously, if you have Farina, then you already have that option. But man, just opening up new teams is so exciting to me. So I'm excited to test it. Get ready for me. I have every single Pyro Electro character built. So pretty much, I think I have every single one built except for Jin Yan. So just wait until my guide. I'm going to test everything with her, and we'll have the best Chevreuse guide on YouTube. So subscribe for that. Bye for now.